Chapter 9. Um, Purity is governed by its value. Part B. Demonstrating your value in the eyes of others. Celebration story. Samara Strauss Cohn on staying public and vertical. After rededicating my life to Christ, I committed myself to remain pure until marriage and sought guidance from any Christian resource I could get my hands on. I recognized that And the Bride Wore White was written to a younger audience, but the title appealed to my heart, so I bought it. The most important concept I will always remember is to stay public and stay vertical. It seems like such a simple concept, but if I had heard those words when I was younger and guarded them in my heart, I would have saved myself from a lot of heartache. I finally had to lay my desires at God's altar and trust that He knew my heart better than anyone. 2 days after I made that commitment, God delivered my prince to me, and he happens to be my prayer partner's older brother. I am happy to say that I am now married to my Boaz. This chapter is for the brave and daring. It's about respecting the great weakness God has created in guys. They are made to physically yearn for our bodies. That's not to say that you might not experience some of the same yearning for their bodies. It is usually far more consuming for men. But that does not give them an excuse to mess up with you. Just saying. University of Chicago Sex Studies said that 54% of men thought about sex daily, a number that caused humorist Dave Barry to conclude the other 46% of the men are lying, because it's a known scientific fact that all men think about sex a minimum of all the time. Ha! I've seen many studies about this, and they vary some, but all agree with one thing: guys think about sex a lot. In his best-selling book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye, Joshua Harris said that his pastor had once asked his youth group to answer the question, "How far have you gone?" They did so using a number skill. After the meeting, Joshua overheard some of the guys bragging about how high they had scored, and with whom in the youth group they had reached a certain number. Yikes. I'm not trying to paint a really ugly picture here, but sometimes young women are terribly naive, or they deny the overtly sexual desires that God built into guys. That is not to say that you may not have similar desires or that a girl is never the aggressor. More often than not, guys are more physically aggressive. Sometimes a girl's actions, clothes, and dating choices are perfectly explosive fuels that may cause a relationship to burst into the flames of a tragic ending. That was not the kind of love story I wanted to write with my life. I hope it is not what you will write with yours. Since you are a princess, you need to be sure to conduct yourself as one. Here are 3 areas in which I see girls forgetting to present themselves as valuable, priceless princesses. But don't, if stuff goes down, don't just blame yourself, because obviously they're not walking to right with God either. Just saying. All right. Here's a side note, real quick. It says Secret Keeper. The Delicate Power of Modesty, Dana Gresh. I feel so strongly about the issue of modesty that I've written an entire book on the subject. It explores the science of our eyes and guys' minds. I think it'll open a whole new way of thinking for you. Grab a copy from your favorite local Christian bookstore or from your favorite place to buy books on the web. Okay. The Royal Wardrobe. Belly rings, mini skirts, short skirts, hip huggers. The fashion world today screams sex for the poor guys out there who struggle to live a life of purity. Since clothes don't affect girls and women in the same way, we continue to wear the latest trends. If you are like me, it's a bit hard to get perspective on this since the fashion trends stare us down every single day. So let's grab some perspective by looking at another day and age. Little Women was written when the fashion was to push a young woman's bust line up to her neckline. In the book, Beautiful and not normally modest, Meg March went to Annie Moffat's coming out party. The other girls attending convinced her to let them dress her, complete with a corset and a low-cut neckline. Meg blushed at herself when she looked in the mirror and determined not to let the way she was dressed affect the person she was, but it did very much affect her. Later, Meg admitted the way she was dressed had made her behave badly. In the movie version of Little Woman, Meg's mother put it all in perspective, telling Meg, "If you feel your value lies in being merely decorative, I fear you will find yourself one day believing that that is all you are. That is all you really are. On your dates and in everyday life, do you want to be merely decorative, a trait that will someday wear away? Might I suggest a litmus test for your wardrobe? When you put on an outfit, ask yourself, do I feel sexy? I'm not talking about feeling good or attractive. I'm talking about feeling seductive. And you know what she's talking about. You know what I mean. If you don't know, then you are probably okay. But if you do know, then you probably have a few things in your wardrobe that need to go. If you feel seductive, you probably are, and that can be very dangerous on a date. It will change the way that you behave and the way your date expects you to behave. Be careful in choosing your royal wardrobe. And this is very true. And this is part of, I think, a bigger problem where we love our sin. We say, "Oh God, forgive us, help us, whatever." But then, like, when this sin comes around, we kind of indulge in it. We're like, "Ooh, he looks really hot," and you just keep thinking and letting it go. Or like, "Oh, I look really hot." Ooh, like taking those Facebook pictures inappropriately and putting them on there. One of these, like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So definitely, aside from fixing your wardrobe, pray. And while you have the courage to throw out those clothes that are kind of scandalous, do it in that moment. Do not wait, okay? Alright, the princess's kingdom. So you're dressed and ready to go. Where should you go? A princess should always stay within the confines of her own kingdom, where she is safely guarded under the watchful eye of her public. I have a friend named Mark, who, when he was dating, knew his weakness was to be consumed with his physical desire. Even in his early 20s, he wanted his dating relationship to be governed by some strict principles. So when Hannah caught his eye, he asked her father for the right to court her. They spent dates sitting on the sofa in her parents' living room under watchful and loving eyes. They kissed for the first time at the altar of the Lord Jesus Christ, as they exchanged vows to love each other for the rest of their lives. Wow, doesn't that sound tough? Oh, I don't know how people do it, but by the grace of God, I'm sure it's possible. Um, as I have conducted purity retreats, the girls tell me two things about where they will go on dates. First, they tell me that nothing good ever happens when they are alone with guys. Their conclusion is always this: if you are truly serious about guarding your innocence and living a lifestyle of purity, you won't go to an apartment, a house, or anywhere where you are truly alone. Ever. So, how serious are you? Are you serious enough to stay public with your relationship? Some of the most memorable dates I had with the man who is now my husband were in a laundry facility. And this is um, like a little piece from her personal journal. We did our laundry together tonight, a special day with my man I will remember, laughing in the laundromat. Some place as crazy as a laundry facility can be a place for romance to bud. Note that I was not just doing his laundry for him, we were doing our laundry together. That's right, ladies, you are not a slave. Anyway, the fact is that we could be monitored by our public. We were in our own little world as the washers and dryers dulled the sound of others around us. If you want to spend time getting to know a guy, pick a place where your public can watch you while you talk. The second thing that girls who attend my retreat tell me is that nothing good ever happens in a horizontal position. Even if other friends are around and they're lounging on a beanbag together, they agree that lying down is a bad line to cross. Lying down is very symbolic of letting your guard down. Don't do it. Stay vertical. A princess should stay where her public can see her, and she should stay vertical. Okay. Okay, Joshua Harris on style and modesty. This is the writer. She says, if everyone reading this book were here right now with us, what would you tell them about how they dress? And Joshua responds this way. I have spoken about this in public. It is always a hard message to deliver because I look around and see how Christian girls are dressed and I think I am going to offend so many of them. They need to look at it this way. There are just a lot of ways that we can take things into our own hands and say, God, I don't think you know what you are doing, or I don't think you are doing it fast enough. How you dress is one way of showing that you do not trust God. Shannon, my wife, talks about this a lot. She knows girls face the temptation to pick up the shorter skirt in the closet because they know that it grabs the guy's attention. But girls have a responsibility to their brothers in Christ to help guard their purity. They have a responsibility to the guy. The way you dress makes a huge difference in how a guy views you and how he guards his heart. You have no idea how difficult it is for a guy to look at you with purity in his heart when you are dressed immodestly. I think a lot of you are naive. You don't understand how a male works, Christian or non-Christian. You don't know that we are stimulated by sight. You just see the style, you know? But you run the risk of really defrauding your Christian brother if you reach for the immodest outfit. If you could just see where girls who dress immodestly lead guys mentally. I have had girls come up to me after I speak about this and say, I have heard my mom and dad tell me this, but hearing it from a guy really changes it for me. Then later they send letters that said, I went through my closet and I threw away these outfits. That's great. That's what he says. Um, yeah. And I don't think some girls like I think even like myself, like I don't dress up for other people. Straight up. Like I dress up for myself. Um, like well, I want to look good in my own eyes. And even that, like just those two things. Either stop trying to dress, in order to attract guys to you, and also be careful to dress seductively because you're like, man, I look really hot, and then you like start whatever envisioning like I'm ready to go on the prowl, and it really does. How you dress it's a very psychological thing. It definitely affects how you act. If you feel good, I mean, if you think you look really hot, then you'll start acting like you're really hot, you know. So it's something. Be careful. It does affect the way you act. It really, really does. Oh, one thing I forgot to say. I'm going to put a link because I have a Pinterest and I have, it's called Modest is the Hottest. Not very original, but who cares? And there's a whole bunch of styles that look really friggin' awesome. And, but they're modest. So you know what that looks like, You can look good and look modest. You don't have to look like a nun. Or, sorry if I offended someone, I don't know. But, yeah. You don't have to look boring to be modest. That's all I'm saying. Alright, the conduct of the princess. Now you've probably got an idea of whom you will be with, how you will dress, and where you will or won't go. Now, how will you act? In my very first love relationship at the age of 15, I did what I see far too many of my favorite girls doing. I wore my heart on my sleeve and left it there for the taking. I later wrote, be careful of your thoughts. They may break into actions. Love will always endure if you keep it pure. Those are two sayings I've heard in the past 2 days, that were real meaningful to me. It's so easy to fall into a bad situation if you don't build up a very straightforward plan of defense. Believe me, I know. Wearing your heart on your sleeve and not being cautious with your actions is not a good idea. It sets you up for great hurt, and to be honest, guys are not nearly as likely to desperately yearn for you when you are easily caught. Guys are competitive and have an insatiable. I don't know why I'm struggling with this. Need to get what they want. I'm gonna say this all over again. Guys are competitive and have an insatiable need to get what they think they have to earn. Jill is a freshman in college who is dating an older guy named Jonathan. She has worn her heart all over her sleeve in this relationship. She has told him, and he has told her, that they will be married someday. They've talked of family, dreams, careers, homes, and everything they possibly can, because they believe they will end up married. They have had a really hard time keeping the relationship pure. I think they just might make it because I see how much they love the Lord and how very much they love each other. But right now, Jonathan is barely interested in pursuing her, and they are taking a break from the relationship. He's more interested in his band, his friends, and his future. Why shouldn't he be? He already has her right where he wants her. She is heartbroken and finds it difficult to wake up in the morning. She is experiencing some of the pain that comes because she made choices characteristic of the crash and burn in the area of her conduct. She is as committed to him as if she were married to him and finds herself unsatisfied. In having everything she wanted in the relationship very quickly, she found herself in a period where she has nothing of the relationship. She forgot that she was single. She forgot that she belongs to herself and God during this season of her life. Joshua Harris says, God gives us singleness, a season of our lives unmatched in its boundless opportunities for growth, learning, and service, and we view it as a chance to get bogged down in finding and keeping boyfriends and girlfriends, but we don't find real beauty of singleness in pursuing romance with as many different people as we want. We find the real beauty in using our freedom to serve God with abandon. My friend, carefully analyzing the royal wardrobe and staying in the eyes of the public are the easiest things to govern because they are very definable. Determining to remain single in your mind and your heart until there is a ring on your finger is a much harder element to govern. It requires you to bridle your heart for a time, but I can promise that in waiting you will find a healthy, growing pain as opposed to the destructive pain of giving your heart away too soon and having it shattered. Take a look at the women in the Bible. The ones with the big headlines are most often those who bridle their hearts to make wise head choices in relationships. Look at Ruth, and let's see what her sister-in-law's name. Well, the two of them were stuck with their old mother-in-law, with no hopes of finding love again. The mother-in-law gave them the chance to follow their hearts and leave. Ruth stayed, though her sister-in-law ran for it. Ruth knew staying was the right thing to do, but it didn't necessarily feel good. Guess what? In the end, God created a rich, beautiful love between her and Boaz, and they became the great-grandparents of the great King David. Because Ruth was governed by her value and didn't wear her heart on her sleeve, she played a vital role in the lineage of David and Jesus. Wow. I wondered whatever happened to her sister-in-law. What's her face? What a great love story, far better than the one she may have written with her life, if she had forgotten her value and allowed her to be governed by her heart. Okay, now it's time to work it. I'd like you to do 3 things with your journal. Take your journal into your closet, or sit with it next to your dresser or wardrobe. Look through your clothes and kick out what needs to go. So do that now, or do it after you finish watching this video. Those are your 2 best deadlines. Okay, Elizabeth Elliot, Passion and Purity. I gotta find this book because it seems really good. I'm very passionate, but I'm trying to be pure. Alright, so this is a quote by her. The relationship that means most in a man's life is governed by far stricter principles than the casual ones. Alright, so that's the quote. Now tell God how good that feels. While you're in there writing, jot down some thoughts on where you can go on a date where you live. Places that allow you to stay public. Finally, talk to God about your heart. Write down the names of people you've given it to and ask God to reclaim it. Trust Him to write a love story beyond your wildest imagination. Determined to be governed by your value, not your heart. The night that I first dated Bob, I knew I needed to be governed by value. I could tell that he fit my list and I was interested in dating him. For real next time. But I had really blown it. I had called him. How desperate does that look? I let him kiss me on our first date. How easy does that seem? I was determined to begin to make some tough choices that better reflected my value, that might mean fewer blissful moments but had the promise of a happily ever after ending loosely attached. The next time I saw Bob, after I realized my poor beginning, I had the list, and I was ready to let my value in God's eyes govern my behavior. He drove by in his little white sports car, backing up when he saw me. I was walking away from him on the pathway to my dorm. "Hey, Dana Barker, come here," he called. My heart jumped and every muscle ached to turn and hop into that car like I had so many times in the past few weeks. "Why?" I probed. "Because you adore me," he claimed. "Oh, do I?" I smiled at him and then turned to keep walking. "Dana Barker, come back here," he called as I calmly kept walking toward my destination. "Chase me," I challenged and confidently walked into my dorm. Okay. Steps to physical intimacy. Be governed by your value like a priceless piece of china. The way you present yourself deserves great care. Take the time to carefully draw a firm, uncrossable line using the suggestions on the next page. Alright, so the first thing is, the first one is, looking at a guy and making eye contact. A good sign that they are interested in you is that they smile and look right back at you. Okay, so that's the first sign, and it's on the bottom, and it goes up. So number 2, which is on top of number 1, talking with the guy. Remember to stock up for a real comfortable and fascinating conversation. Alright, above that is holding hands. This is a nice sign of attachment. It says you like each other, your relationship is growing. Then 4, hands on shoulders and hands on waist. A definite sign that romance is in the air. 5, kissing on the cheek or softly kissing on the lips. These are sweet, innocent signs of affection. 6, open mouth, passionate kissing. A new desire awakens with this. Then number 7 is higher, petting while clothed. Petting, I know that sounds so silly, but what she means is really touching each other. Yeah. 8, experimental nakedness. And 9, sex. Alright, so the line. If you're truly governed by your value, you should never find yourself in a compromising situation. Unfortunately, I know some of you will find yourselves in that position anyway. Are you prepared to stop things? Let's walk through this together. Look at steps to physical intimacy sidebar, which is what I just told you. 1. Draw a firm black line right above the step where you will stop any type of physical contact. Predetermining where you will stop things will help you when temptations arise. It will set off a mental alarm for you. Remember, God designed you and me to naturally desire to move to the next step. It is not easy to stop the desires to progress. Be very conservative, oh what a word, about where you draw this firm black line. 2. Now take time to prayerfully consider, would God be pleased to see you doing that particular physical activity directly below that firm black line? If you have any doubt at all, go back to number 1 and reconsider your choice. Remember, God desires that you do not have even a hint of sexual immorality within your life. 3. Finally, let me suggest the option of drawing a line at a lower level of physical activity before you are engaged. For example, let's say you drew your firm black line above 5. You have determined that your firm black line will remind you to stop as soon as soft kissing begins to turn into something more passionate. I desire for you to unquestionably not go beyond that line when you are engaged. That can be hard. Your body and your mind are telling you that you've almost made it, and temptation can really blindside you. But oh, you have almost made it. Don't blow it here. I am not saying you have to, but wouldn't it be neat to save that special intimacy for your engagement? Push yourself. Draw a dotted line at a lower level and determine not to go beyond that line until you are engaged. What decisions do you need to make in your current dating behavior that will protect you from going too far, too soon? Keep in mind that you must stop before you have any desire to be more physically intimate with someone. For many, that means holding hands is too far. So that's the end of that. And I will also put these steps of physical intimacy in the description.